안녕하십니까. 오늘 이른 아침에 이렇게 빨리 나와주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. 특히 오늘은 고려대학교의 대학원생들이 많이 나와주셔서 환영합니다. 여러분들 오늘 좋은 연사를 모시고 여러분들 궁금한 게 있으시면 나중에 질의응답식을 통해서 여러분 궁금한 거를 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그러면 관례에 따라서 제가 영어로 회의를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we witness ever more accelerating trend of globalization. Apparently, the driving force for the trend is global firms, which move across borders freely for markets, for production, and for recruitment. BT, which is headquartered in UK, is one such company, actually, which is very successful one in that regard. BT has expanded, I understand, and grown very fast as global IT group during the last 5 years or so, under the leadership of CEO, who happened to be with us this morning, and Verwaayen. Under his brilliant and outstanding leadership, the BT has become a leading global IT group. And BT is not very prominent in Korea, but it just is beginning. And BT is all over the world. It is not only becoming a leading global business group, but also I know it is helping others to globalize and further globalize. So this morning we are very fortunate to have Verwaayen, who has been with BT, as I said, the last 5 years as CEO, and since he has been very successful, I'm sure he will share his very enlightening views with us, particularly with students and management this morning, particularly based on his personal experience. So I asked Ben to shorten his presentation time so that he can have a longer period of Q&A session this morning. Actually, Ben was here before with us. So some of you already met him and know him well. He is a Dutch by nationality, the same country where Gus Hiddink is from, and Hamid also. We have some special relationship with that Dutch. With this, I'd like to welcome Ben Verwaayen. Please join me.
Good morning, everybody. And I'm always very impressed if at 7:30 in the morning you find so many people coming to a breakfast, and it must be Dr. Sarkone's reputation that brings you here. And I share that because he is one of my bosses. He sits on our advisory council, and every time he speaks, we carefully listen to what he has to say. So I understand that you're here to also to hear from him. But let me start by making some introductory remarks, and then we can have a good discussion. I'm not so sure, to be honest, that globalization is driven by anything else than consumers. Because consumers have a very simple life in one way. They demand from the market the best possible service or the best possible product for the lowest price. Everything else is of secondary nature. And if I look to what I find in the shops in London, I'll find the world. And that was globalization 1.0. The world discovered that there was so much more available than just what you could find in your home market. And globalization meant that you could transport goods and products and services much easier, let's say 20, 30 years before. Globalization 1.0 also meant that you had to take into account that your customers probably would not be just your local customers. So you needed to think about writing a manual in different languages and maybe to look to what were customs in other cultures. But it was based on a safe assumption. And the assumption was that you would create your benefits in the environment that you know very well. So culturally, everybody stayed home. Product-wise, we went abroad. And some people even said, if I want to serve another market, if I want to serve the US, okay, I'll start a factory there. That was globalization 1.0. And then came the next phase. And that's globalization 2.0. Because it wasn't anymore the product or the service that started to travel. It became the battle of ideas. It became an era of digitization. Digitization means that knowledge, creativity, ideas, wherever they are going in the world, can be brought together wherever you want them to bring together. Now, ideas always come from people, seldom from computers. They're created by people. So that's why the war for talent started. You could be a company, and you would spot talent around the world in the past. The problem was you had to send them an invitation. And people had to travel 5,000 miles to come and work somewhere else. In my past life, I worked for a company that owned Bell Labs, the most renowned private research facility in the world. And what they would do, they would travel around September time, around the world, and find the best students, the very best. And those very best students would get an invitation to pack their things, leave their families at home, and travel 5,000 miles, going to live in a foreign country in order to advance their careers. Big step. Some of them did. They became very, very, very famous. But they always longed to get home. Now you don't need to do that anymore. You can say to people, stay home. You don't need to travel. You don't need to take the extra step to go from one culture to the other. The only thing we want from you is your mind, your creativity, your contribution, because we can bring you together in a digital manner. We can accept that you live wherever you live, and we still bring you together in one project or in one effort. So we can get access to you and to your ideas and your concepts, and bring that together and be a better company or a better institution. And that has changed the landscape forever. Because now, globalization is not about a Starbucks in the Forbidden City. It's not to take one product or one culture and plant it into another. It becomes very individual. Because I can now start a battle for the best person in a certain discipline. I can find that person and employ that person. Which is fantastic news for hundreds of millions of people that lived in areas that so far were excluded from the economic boom. If you live in a small village in India, 15 years ago, you could be absolutely brilliant. Nobody would ever know. Today, that person can contribute really in the economic wealth creation of being part of an ecosystem that brings those brains together. And we call that the miracle of India. It's the IT services boom. It's nothing else than the capability to use their brains and to bring it to fruition wherever in the world. They don't move, their brains move electronically. Now, what are the consequences? They are huge. First of all, if you are over 50, congratulations, it will probably not touch you. Because you are in a phase of life that you can rest on your laurels with that particular part of the threat and just observe. If you're under 50, you better pay attention. Because something will shift. The weight will shift. The average salary in the US for an IT executive was $100,000 5 years ago. Today it's $60,000. Oh yeah, they're still employed. They're just not as valuable as they were. Did they dumb down? Did they become all of a sudden a less attractive person? Well, they didn't dumb down, but yes, they are less attractive because there are alternatives. Better alternatives, faster alternatives. And you know what? That has always been the case in the economy. It may be a bad story for the individual. Collectively, that's how economies around the world grow. The difference is that we can now all see and witness it in real time. 50, 100 years ago, it took a generation to take stock and say, oh, that's happened. Today, you can see it on television in real time. So politicians become very nervous about it and say, let's stop this. Let's ensure that that person will keep 100,000. The problem is you can't. You can artificially try to stop it for a second. But then somebody else will come up and say, if you don't do it, I'll do it. And remember the consumer at the end of the day? They walk into Walmart in the US and buy the best product for the lowest price. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that counts, the behavior of the consumer. Now the consumer is also the voter. And here's the interesting thing. When a consumer is left-brained, does all the things that the consumer does, and goes and shops and buys the best stuff, when he comes out of the supermarket with all those big bags of stuff from all over the world, they turn around to the government and say, stop globalization for me. So as a consumer, they take full advantage of it. As a voter, they are calculating in voting as well. That is excellent for the neighbors, but not for them. So, what's the answer? Well, the answer is not just product innovation, not just the innovation on technology. That was all fine. And we can talk about it for hours. But that's fine. That has its own dynamics. What is missing is social innovation. Because if you look to the components that make success, it is product and technology, it's organization, it's the structure of an organization, how to compete. But at the end, it's the individual motivation to contribute. So how do you get the best talent to do the extra step so that you can bring an economy to the next phase? And that will require social innovation. Now that sounds very softy. Social innovation. Well, we in business, we don't do that stuff, do we? Because social innovation is something for universities and they can study it. You can send your HR guy over to listen to it. Because we are tough, we are business, we are P&L, we don't do that. Well, think again. Because I think that social innovation is the core ingredient for success. If you want to get the best talents around the world, and you do not recognize the cultural difference that you have to bridge, the definition of success for individuals are different in the US compared with China, in Korea compared with France, and you do not understand how to bring that together, you will absolutely fail. If you do not understand what it takes to motivate people to go out of their comfort zone, you will absolutely fail. And organizations are conservative. Why? Well, because people are successful in the past. That's why they are where they are today. They were very successful in the 60s and the 70s, and they're now the bosses. And the young generation comes and says, no, we have to do it differently. But they just arrived with all the knowledge that they built up in the past. Why would they change? It's like climbing a mountain. And after a very hard battle, you reach the top. And somebody says, thank you very much, you reached the top, no time to waste, because there's another top. People say, wait a minute, I want to rest for a while. I want to enjoy what I've done. I want to see the view. And that's called conservatism. You do not want to change. You want to keep what it is, because you finally arrived at the top. But all the guys who are still climbing the mountain will say, change, change. So here's the battle. The real battle. The real battle is not about, is globalization happening? You can ignore it, but it's there. Just look to your shopping bag. Just look to what you consume yourself. And the battle of ideas is also readily available on the internet. Look to the social networking, and I can go on and on and on. It's there to stay. Now the question is what to do with it. And it's all about the willingness to change. And it's all about social innovation. How do we get people? Not just the happy few at the very top, the brilliant people. How can you get other people buying into the concept? How would you say here in Korea that all the great things that you have done and the power that you've built counts for nothing unless you're willing to change? Brands disappear in a heartbeat. Pan Am was the world's most renowned airline 20 years ago. They don't exist anymore. They simply don't exist. Google did not exist 10 years ago. And it's wiped out the whole industry. So don't think that big beats protection. It does not. It does not. Don't think that history, creation of history, gives you protection, because it does not. Many TV brands never heard about Samsung or LG 10 years ago. And today, it's dominating the market. Well, great story. No guarantee that 10 years from now it's still a great story. So here you are. How do you get yourself into a space that you adjust and adapt, and that the structure in which you organize yourself will inspire the best people to join, will inspire the debate and not the hierarchy, not because what you have done 20 years ago will determine whether you are in charge, but will determine what is the best idea today. And how do you encourage a system that keeps producing people with the motivation and the capabilities to contribute? That's the real question. So therefore, discussions like these are important. It is not impossible to be successful in a globalized environment. It is very possible. It won't be the deepest pockets, in my view. It will be the organizations and the people that are best willing to be agile, to be very changeable, and to have the willpower to look to the issue from the other side. So is that a mark? I think enough to have a debate and see where the audience brings us. Thank you.